So my name is Erez Shachar. I'm the founding partner of Qumra Capital. Qumra is actually the first Israeli late-stage venture fund investing in growth stages of tech companies. And we were founded about 10 years ago. The story is less about us and the fund, but more about the progression of Israeli technology and the coming of age of the Israeli technology market. About 10 years ago, when we started raising capital for our first Qumra fund, we came from an environment of early stage investment. We had a fund called Evergreen, which was a classic Israeli early stage fund, investing in seed, round A, and really investing in technological innovation and trying to get to product market fit with new products and new technologies. And that was basically what the Israeli market was all about. Okay? Israeli market was later named, the startup nation, and rightfully so. Israel was really involved in creating early stage startups and actually selling them relatively early on in their life when they were getting to product market fit. And like many innovations and many developments in the tech world, innovation comes from pain and from frustration. Okay? And we were a bit pained and frustrated by the fact that we're building great companies, we're building great innovation, great technologies, but before we really start scaling the companies, before we really start creating significant shareholder value, we're actually selling to the first multinational that comes through the door. And that wasn't a great way, in our view, of really developing a strong, sustainable technology market in Israel. And that's what really drove us to create Qumra, to create the first late-stage venture fund in the market. And since then, about 10 years ago that we started Qumra, the Israeli late-stage market has taken up by storm and really became one of the strongest growth stage investment areas globally. Okay? And this was very fortunate timing, but the fortunate timing was not just macro-driven. It was really the fact that Israeli entrepreneurs and Israeli CEOs, management teams became capable and motivated to really scale companies and take them all the way. But I'm not here to talk about our business, and I'm not here to talk about what happened to the Israeli tech ecosystem. I'm here to talk about what really happened in the last year in Israel in terms of the social involvement of the tech sector in the Israeli day-to-day life. We were notorious for being very detached from the Israeli political environment, the Israeli social environment. Our world of reference was always Silicon Valley. We saw ourselves as global players. We developed our technologies in Israel, we developed our products in Israel, but very soon after starting the companies, we looked outside. We don't have a local market. The companies were global from day one, and we thought that we are global from day one as well, and our world of reference was much less Israel, much more Silicon Valley. That all changed about a year ago when a new government came into place, the most right-wing government in the history of Israel. I'm not going to give a political speech right now, but this government created a judicial reform, or attempted to create a judicial reform, which we felt in our world of values is going to be extremely harmful to the Israeli tech environment and later on to Israel itself. And the tech sector, which was notoriously detached, became the leading force in generating a protest movement that was never seen before in the Israeli market. And really, for me, symbolizes the reconnection, if you want, of Israeli technology sector with Israeli society. And this protest movement, we were supposed to see a very inspiring picture of the protest movements, but We missed it. Exactly. The protest movement became, in my view, one of the biggest connectors of Israeli society. It put together people that weren't really in communication before. The tech sector, people from the center of Tel Aviv, with a lot of the geographical and social periphery of Israel. And I think that this dialogue continues until today based on the original starting of the protest movement over a year ago. But other than the fact that this was an inspiring movement and really made a lot of noise, it was an extremely effective movement in the fact that it actually stopped the judicial reform contemplated by the government. And today, unfortunately, we're dealing with a lot of other issues and crises, but at least this crisis is behind us. And it's really, the credit is to be given to the people who took to the streets without, very selflessly, people that really didn't need to do that. This was led by people who had all the privilege in the world and could choose to just ignore this and live their life, but really dedicated their livelihood to trying to save what we felt was something that is a huge risk for the Israeli society. Now, October 7th hit us all by surprise, and it was a great shock to all of us. What happened in October 7th to this protest movement is that in one day, still in the evening of October 7th, the people who were most involved in leading the protest movement became the people most involved in leading the civil support movement that followed October 7th. We were in an operating room, if you want, an operational room already that evening. The tech protest movement with brothers and sisters in arms and other organizations that were very active in the movement. And from that day, we became a civil support movement and acting as such until this day. We raised a lot of funds during the protest movement to support the protests. The day after October 7th, we started raising funds for supporting the civil support movement, supporting the people that were outside of their homes in the south and later on in the north, supporting huge programs of mental health support to any population that is needing that, and there were huge populations needing that. And we actually deployed the capabilities that we've built over the years in the venture capital industry and in the tech industry in Israel to create creative and scalable ways of supporting a very, very needy situation. And what you see here is just a few examples. On the left-hand side, you're seeing the logistics center that was established on October 8th in this operational center that we've built. All of it was taking in donations from people who just spontaneously came over to donate. And we've created, within days, a logistic management system based on Israeli technology companies that donated people and donated a lot of time to create very quickly logistic management systems, transportation management systems, and so on. Companies like Monday and Wix and Fiverr and Connectim dedicated huge resources to create systems that were supporting all of the civil support movement throughout the first days of the post-October 7th war, but until today are still managing a significant portion of the civil support that is needed in this time of crisis. We felt that the government was not really there, and that civil support movements had to take its place, and we've stepped up to the challenge, just like we did the year before. We were actually a bit fortunate that we had this protest movement set up with a lot of tens of thousands of people volunteering that could very easily be deployed the day after October 7th to this movement. Now, I want to say a few words about the impact of the war on the Israeli tech sector. Okay, I think that one of the things that we were very concerned about immediately following October 7th is that we are an industry that is dependent on constant investment, global investment in our industry. We are building growth companies which are still at stages of need of funding in order to continue their operations. And we were a bit concerned that investment will pull back very quickly when you're in a war zone. And today, in hindsight, to our surprise, we've really seen very little of that happening. And we've seen a huge resilience of the Israeli tech sector during all of this process. And when you analyze this a bit, it shouldn't be very surprising because the Israeli tech sector is a global market, is a global business. We're selling 95% of our products outside of Israel. That shouldn't really be affected by the fact that Israel is undergoing what it's going. We did have some impact of active reservists from tech companies that were called into action. Some of them still are in active reserves. Initially, it was about 20% of our Israeli workforce that was drafted. Today, it's less than 10%. So this was a concern, but again, I think that the spirit of what happened in Israel during this period made up for a lot of this. People who were working double and triple shifts to make up for people who were actually drafted. And we've seen very little impact on product development, timetables, and so on, because most of the people are engineers working in R&D. The vast majority of our employees are actually outside of Israel in go-to-market organizations. And in terms of investments activities, we did see a decline in Q4 of investment activity, but it was very minor. We were concerned about a real pullback. Still, about $1.5 billion of investment went into the Israeli startup sector within Q4. So after the October 7th attack, there were several significant acquisitions of Israeli tech companies during this period, right after the war. So we have seen that at least the global financial markets are treating our industry as a very resilient industry because of its underlying characteristics of being a global industry in a global market. And I'd like to end this by saying, I think that we're facing very difficult times. Okay, we've never seen this accumulation of crises in Israel, at least not in my lifetime. But I think that there is huge reason for optimism looking at how the Israeli public reacted to this crisis, looking at the solidarity created in Israel the day after, and the fact that this solidarity is actually now working on a lot of things that we should have been working more aggressively before, connecting the geographical and the social periphery of Israel into the center. The tech sector, I think, here is really important in creating these sea change movements in Israeli society. We've been active for years now in trying to get Arab Israelis and ultra-Orthodox and underserved communities into the Israeli tech workforce. For some of it, very selfish reasons. We were looking for internal immigration, if you want, of populations that weren't active in Israeli tech before. Today, we're doing it both because it's self-serving, but also because we understand that this is going to be the strengthening of the fabric of Israeli society that we need so much. So I really want to thank you very much. Thank you for your patience staying at this time. Thank you.